In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is simply a formula that allows one to solve quadratic equations. It is also known as the almighty formula. So to start with, I'll just remind you of what a quadratic equation is. It's simply an equation of the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants, so they can take real number values, while y and x are variables. But the key thing is that a is not equal to 0, because if a is 0, then there is no x squared term, and the equation will no longer be a quadratic equation. Solving a quadratic equation simply means determining values of x that satisfy the equation. So for instance, you can be asked to solve the equation here. But the more general question is where you're asked to determine the roots of this equation. And the roots of a quadratic equation of this form are simply the solution to the equation where y is 0. So you replace y with 0, you simply get this equation. Solving this equation allows one to obtain the roots. Note, this equation is the same as this equation. The only difference is this equation is obtained when the left hand side and the right hand side of this equation have been swapped. So on to the root of a quadratic equation. So like I said, if you have an equation in the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, to determine the root of that equation, one just has to solve the equation when y is 0. And this is where the almighty formula comes in. So when you have a quadratic equation, so for example, I'll just give you an example. This is an equation 5x squared plus 2x plus 3. It's a quadratic equation. If you wanted to determine the roots of this equation, you'll be solving the equation for the case where y is 0. So 0 equals 5x squared plus 2x plus 3, which I will rewrite as 5x squared plus 2x plus 3 equals 0. Now you solve this equation, and to solve this equation all you need is the almighty formula, which is what is given here. But let's stick to the general form. So if you have an equation of the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, you're asked to determine the roots of this quadratic equation. All you have to do is solve this equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So all I've done is I've replaced y with 0 and swapped the left hand side of this equation with the right hand side where y is 0. So the equation here is the almighty formula. It just gives you a value for the unknown variable. In this case, the unknown variable is x. It gives you values for the unknown variable that cause the equation to be satisfied. So in this case, we have the equation x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is an equation you'll have to remember, and it's something that will take a number of trials. You have to practice using the equation, and eventually it will stick. So you need to remember this equation. You need to memorize this equation. Now this equation here, which I'll call equation 1, can be broken down into two parts. Equation 1a and equation 1b. So I need you to notice that this is an equation because it's saying a left-hand side term is equal to a right-hand side term. So it's an equation. This is also an equation. So here we have x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac in the numerator. In this first case, because this equation, well, this symbol here means plus or minus. What this equation is just the case where one just takes the plus case. Second equation is the case where one just takes the minus case. Remember, this is plus or minus. So we're taking the plus case, we're taking the minus case. So once you remember this equation, you can easily break it down into these two. So in this equation, we have x is equal to minus b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And the second equation is just the same thing, except that the plus is now in minus. But what you need to realize is this b, a, and c terms are a, b, and c. So once you have an equation, for instance, in this equation, 5 is a, this equation b is 2, and c is 3. So you actually know these values, and you need them to solve the equation, and you determine x value. So we're going to move on to examples next.